up in my sharing setup. I want to make sure that this release begins on the same day that the client checks in. And releases are generally good for 1 year. And again, in fact, it is whatever you determine with your client. Document how the release was obtained and save the release of information. Now, just for the sake of showing you one more time, we're going to pretend that Jerry says no to sharing his information statewide. So I'm going to now, I'll describe what we're seeing on the screen before we move on. Entry data. We don't have to do anything here. This simply denotes that our provider page has been set up to create the program entry and stamp that program entry with the same date that we're checking the person into the bed. That ensures that all the data recorded on this client within the program entry gets stamped with the proper date so that our assessment information will show correctly in our reports. Multiple services, this may or may not show on your screen when you're checking people in. It is a provider page setup item. If you do have it showing on your screen, you would use this to add any other services, that is, other than the shelter stay service, because that's automatically recorded. So other services can be added at the same time that you're checking people into their beds. Do be aware of the service start dates and end dates if you are doing your data entry at a later time. So I'm just going to click Save and Exit to put this client into the bed, and it takes me back to my dashboard. I click the View All button, and now I can see that Jerry has been added to bed number 5 in the men's barracks. Once again, he doesn't have any more information recorded yet, so I'm going to click on his name and navigate to his program entry to fill out the crucial data on this client. I open his bed stay screen. I'm going to navigate to the top of the pop-up window and click on the Program Entry Exit tab and click on the pencil next to the program entry. That opens up the program entry screen and populates it with my entry assessment. This again could be the ESG assessment or the ESP TANF. Either one of those workflows can be used for the TANF program. So now I'm going to put in the gender, the date of birth, and the date of birth type. And skipping down the screen, I can use this opportunity to answer the crucial questions. Since he's a single male, he is not TANF eligible. Yes, he is homeless. His housing status is literally homeless. He is not chronically homeless. His prior living situation was a place not meant for habitation. How long was he there? We're going to say 1 to 3 months. And the zip code of his last permanent address. And the quality of the zip code, the county, and the household size is an important question. How many adults make up that household? 1. And health condition, skipping the pregnancy question, no disability, not a veteran, 0 income, no benefits, and save and exit. Takes me back to the program entry pop-up window. From here, I click Save and Exit. And notice Jerry's information now contains more data. Okay, now as I said, we're going to pretend that Jerry told us that no, he did not want to share his personal information on the statewide system. So I am aware I need to lock this client record down. Again, that has nothing to do with the yes release of information. That has to do with how we're going to share our data with our funder and with various other provider pages. So to lock down Jerry's profile, I'm going to open him up from the bed list. I'm going to navigate to the Stay Data tab, scroll to the bottom, and I'm going to jump to Jerry's profile. This will take me into ShelterPoint. Here's Jerry's profile. There's that lock we showed you about at the very beginning of this podcast. I'm going to click on it. I am going to remove the global visibility group from the client profile. This hides it from the statewide system. Further, because he's requested that I not share with Ladybug, I'm going to remove Ladybug as well. I'm going to click the exit button, and there we have secured this client record. Do not neglect to save and exit when you are done. And now I'm going to expand my navigation control panel so I can jump back to ShelterPoint, use my View All button, displaying my bed list, and we see that we have our clients in the various beds we put them into, and I know that I've secured Jerry's record. The way the client wished to not share has been accomplished. And now let's just take a moment to review what we've learned so far. And if you would please take a pen and paper and write down the following 5 things, which are items you should always be thinking about and remember when you're working with your clients and their data entry in the system. The first one I would like to mention is client security, securing the client record. That's the last thing we just did with Jerry, honoring his wishes to not allow visibility on the public system. We locked down his client profile to just our agency and our funder. That will mean that no other agency in the statewide system will be able to open this client record because they will not find it in the system. The next thing we want to always think about is the program entry. The program entry is very important because that's where we have our assessment data attached and time-stamped with the same date as the program entry. This ensures the reports that we run can see the correct data at the correct time on this client. Answers in the system are stacked one upon the other according to the client history, so it's very important that those answers be stamped according to the truth on the client entry as opposed to the truth on the client exit. The next thing we want to remember is that release of information. That is crucial. If we don't say yes to that release, the information will not be visible to our funder. So we always want to record that yes release of information. The other items to be aware of are the shelter stay. That's the service that's going on in the background. The dates on that are very important. They should begin and end with the same dates of our program entries and exits. These dates are important. When a client leaves your shelter temporarily, their bed stay must end on the day they leave and must then be continued on when they come back. We'll get into that a bit later. And the last item of the 5 that I want you to remember is the assessment information itself. It's very important to have the correct information on the assessment. Clients who are staying in a shelter are marked as homeless. Their housing status must be literally homeless in order for the program to be operating correctly. Also, once again, the answer to that question, housing status, can change when the client exits. When they exit to a stable housing environment, we want to update the housing status question. So that would change from literally homeless to stably housed in the case where the client is moving into their own apartment. However, we do not update the homeless question on exit. The duty of changing the yes to the is client homeless question falls to the next agency that this client visits for service, if they should do so in the future. In order for our community and statewide homeless counts to remain correct, we leave the client homeless marked yes in the is client homeless question after entry. The only thing we update is the housing status. And now let's examine the process of recording a temporary absence from our shelter. We're going to say that we give Jerry an overnight pass so that he can return to a previous place of habitation and get some of his important records. So he's going to be gone from the shelter for just one night. And also, we're going to record that Ben Marker, the son of John and Sally, is going to leave for a weekend to go stay with his grandparents so that he can get out of the shelter environment for just a couple of days. So in order to remove people from their bed lists on the correct dates, we're going to utilize the Transmit Today's Checkout List button at the far bottom right of our ShelterPoint bed list screen. Click on that button. It will display everyone who is not confirmed for the night's stay. They're going to show in the checkout list. We're going to find Ben's record. We're going to select him for checkout. And we're going to give a reason for leaving and a destination. Now in Ben's case, he is going to have other because he's just leaving to stay with the grandparents. So his destination is going to be staying or living with family temporarily. In the case of Jerry, Jerry's going to be leaving just on an overnight pass. Whoops, one thing I forgot about Ben. The correct day that I want to check him out. We'll say they checked in on the 10th, so he's going to check out on the 11th. He'll be coming back on the 13th, which is Monday. In Jerry's case, he's just leaving overnight. He checked in on the 24th, so he's going to be leaving the day of the 25th. And once again, I need to populate the reason for leaving and the destination. We're going to say his is other as well. And his destination, he's just going to be taking an overnight trip. So let's see what would fit here. Other. He's just going somewhere overnight. It's a long trip. He'll be back the next day. When I have all my fields populated for the exit, and bear in mind this will populate a program exit for these people, I'm going to click the checkout button. Now that's going to remove them from the bed list. So now we no longer see Jerry in our bed list, and if I scroll up, I no longer see Ben here either. So when Jerry returns, I'm going to search for him from the empty bed that I'm going to put him into. And we're going to put him in bed 2 in the men's barracks. I search, I find the client, click on him, and I'm putting him into bed 2 on the 26th, and I can save and exit. So when I go back to my bed list, when I look at Jerry's record, we're going to navigate to the shelter stay area in the service transactions. And we see that he originally checked in on the 24th. He checked out on the 25th. He went overnight on a trip and came back on the 26th. If I should click on his entry exit button, I see that he entered our program on the 24th.